Lead Well, Live Whole, the podcast where leadership meets life. Your host, Michael Sermon, is here to help you rise above the noise, lead with purpose, and live with clarity. Let's get to it.
Welcome back to Lead Well, Live Whole, where we explore leadership that's more than strategy and performance. It's soul, it's rhythm, it's real life. I'm your host, Michael Sermon, and today we're going to tackle the second half of the power of encouragement, fuel for the journey. Because encouragement, it's not fluff, it's not weakness. It's a weapon against despair, it's oxygen for the soul. So let's get to it. Joining us today is my beautiful bride, Tammy. I talked about her a little bit last week, and I refer to her as the Queen of Encouragement. So, Tammy, tell us a little bit about encouragement and why is it so important for you to be an encourager?
Hey, babe. Hey, everybody. It is wonderful to be here. Thank you, Michael, for inviting me to be on the show. I know that every one of us just seem to come alive whenever we find ourselves in a really deep and often dark place. And it really helps when someone comes along and just gives you an attaboy or, hey, I see you. I know there are times that that I wish that I had more of that in my life, but for whatever reason, God has called me to be the encourager. And so I have always tried to go out of my way to see people in every aspect of their life, whether it's in their deepest hurts or at the height of whatever they're doing. If they're just really excelling, it's just important to always encourage. And I know when my mom was alive, when all our parents were alive, because at this point in our life, we are the only parents and only grandparents. All of our parents and grandparents have passed away. And so, but they were our biggest cheerleaders. They were the ones that constantly told us that we could do things when we felt that we were struggling, when we felt like we weren't giving it our all. They were quick to correct us and remind us that we were doing good and that that we were doing much better than we ever thought we were. And just that tiny bit of encouragement that, you know, don't talk to yourself, put yourself down, those types of things that, you know, and telling us we're going to do great things with our life. That's what encouraged Michael and us, of course, in more depth. But that is the things that really encouraged Michael and I, having those people in our ballpark, just lifting us up and encouraging us, telling us that we were born to do great and beautiful things. Because I had that in my life and Michael has had that in his life, and it was at the very forefront of our life, our marriage moving forward. That's why we both feel very, very called to not only encourage, but to step alongside someone when they're struggling and to hold their hand.
No, that's good. That's a good point. We did have the cheerleaders, and one thing that we know about them is they were very sincere when they did the encouragement, right? And it's obvious when someone is not, when someone is just going through the motions or someone is just issuing an empty platitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
How important is authenticity over perfection when you're encouraging someone?
I'm not sure what you mean.
So some people want to say the exact right, perfect thing, so they'll labor over it and they'll torture themselves just trying to get the right thing down on paper, right? And you do that sometimes. I've seen you really wrestle with sometimes when you want to say something very specific.
Mm-hmm.
But at what point is the authenticity of just saying what you want to say versus the perfect word more important?
I don't know. This is funny because usually I'm the interviewer. If I'm going to talk with someone, I'm the one asking questions. People don't really ever ask me questions. I don't know. I just want someone, when they're speaking to me, for them to just speak to me straight from the heart. to me, I'm going to take it more than them trying to polish everything and make it seem perfect. I would rather sit down and have a cup of coffee with a girlfriend and her just blubber her heart out to me, as opposed to trying to say things because she may be afraid that she's going to say something the wrong way to me. Because I like that visiting back and forth.
Yeah.
And because when she's encouraging me, I'm going to come right back and encourage her. I'm going to point out the things that she may, she's going to tell me the things that maybe I do that encourages her, but I'm going to come right back at her and say, oh my gosh, girl, if you think you encourage me, this is how you encourage my life. I don't know if that's what you were asking, but
exactly. And that's actually a great segue, because last week we talked about encouraging through text and encouraging through written word. This week we're going to kick off with verbal affirmations, right? The importance of that communication. And I think you did it right. And we talked about that, or said it right. And we talked about that a little bit before we started recording, about how sometimes, you're needing the confirmation, or you're needing that encouragement, or that someone to prop you up when you're being called to encourage someone else. And you have to do it from that place of emptiness, which we're going to talk about later. But the verbal affirmation, I think is huge, right? Because that gives you the opportunity to speak life into that person, to build their identity, right? To cultivate courage within them. Because over the years, we've had a lot of ministry opportunities, a lot of, whether it's official ministry or one-on-one, just encouraging and challenging someone to see themselves as we see them and as God sees them. And the impact, and when you see their identity come back, you see it just kind of just like breathing on that ember in a fireplace, and suddenly the fire kicks off again. It's just something that just excites you and makes you hungry, for more of that. And I think that we forget that empty spot we're in when we're in the middle of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's kind of like when you're feeding someone, you're feeding yourself at the same time.
Right. I know there were a couple of instances when you and I were at a mission church in Stillwell, Oklahoma, and two different gentlemen, actually it was one church in Stillwell and another one in another little town that God had placed us in as interim pastors. And but both of those gentlemen completely, one was an older man, another one was a younger man, and both were married, both had children. And I could see the perspective from both people's lives. I could see that one was older, that his kids were teenagers, that I just wasn't quite sure what their life was, because they were new families in our church. And but it, at different points, God would have me to go up and just say, things that crazy things like, I just want you to know that God told me that he sees great things in you. And these worn, heavy faces, angry faces, each Sunday, God would have me to say things like that. It was very genuine. I was very uncomfortable walking up to a complete stranger to say something like that, but I just followed through with what God would have me to say. And I saw God do big, beautiful things in these men's lives and their family's life. The women had both came to me and at different points and said, I keep hearing you talk to my husband, and please just keep saying whatever it is God's telling you, because it's transforming our family's lives. And so anyway, that is extremely rewarding whenever you come at the end of yourself and you say, okay, God, please just use me. Please use me however you need to use me today. Help me be an instrument of your love.
Yeah.
And then you just get up the courage to do whatever it is he's called you to do, even though a lot of times it, outside your realm and you feel so completely uncomfortable, it's when we follow through that if we'll hold tight, we get to see the fruit of those, of those actions.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful.
It is. I think a lot of times that, we've talked about the text and the written notes. They're kind of anonymous in a way, right? It's kind of like a keyboard warrior. You have the privacy and opportunity just to sit back and just do your own thing, and you don't get that immediate feedback. When you're doing it verbally, it's when you're talking to somebody and you're giving them that verbal encouragement or that verbal affirmation, you get immediate feedback. And it's not always the feedback that you expect that it's going to be. So I think that there's a lot of times that, we've been in service or been somewhere and I would just really feel that I need to say this or encourage someone with this. And it was so hard because I know nothing about them. I don't know what they're going on. So how dare I step into their zone?
Yes.
Into their space. But the reality is that we are all interconnected as people, right? Mm-hmm. And if we see, if we feel, if we understand that there's a need, I think there is an accountability to not responding and not encouraging and not doing. Now, in the arena of leadership, it's the same thing. Whether you're leading at home or leading, in some sport or whatever, or leading at work, there's accountability for encouraging and building and helping people see and understand their own identity, right?
Right.
Because again, when we speak life, it builds their identity.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds them of their identity. It cultivates that courage and gives them the courage to step up and be who it is they want to be to begin with.
And may I say something?
Absolutely.
Sometimes, honestly, I agree with that to a certain degree, but sometimes through life's situations, we find ourselves in a place that we have no idea what our identity is. It can be through actions of hurts. It can be actions of things that happened to us as a child, things that happened to us from a child through adulthood. And we're always constantly searching, and God uses those people to come into our life, to speak into our life, and a window cracks open and we start seeing little glimpses of what we don't know is there about us, but that person, God was using that person to speak into us, and we start realizing there is more to us than we ever knew.
That's true.
And we start diving more into, oh, wow, because we were just watching an episode, and I don't mean to trail off of topic, but we were just, and it's kind of still on topic. We were watching an episode. We take some classes, and this woman, she struggles, I feel, with her identity right now. And, it's easy to try to latch onto someone else's identity because you see such greatness in them and you want that for your life. But if that isn't necessarily your gift or calling, we can sometimes chase after someone else's dreams, their gifts.
Yep.
But we need that person. When we see someone going through that, when we see them struggling, we see them chasing after something that we know is not necessarily their forte, their gift. That's not their calling.
Right.
Just reaffirm to them what their calling really is. Speak to them about their gifts. Speak to them about everything that you see that's good in them. Because sometimes just from us being lost, we will start chasing after other things.
That's true.
And I wasn't trying to veer off. I was just trying to say,
kind of like when you're on a diet, right? Mm-hmm. Or when you're hungry and you're hungry for something, but you don't know what it is, you don't have it there, you just start eating everything around you. And all of a sudden you put all this crap in you that here's what you're really hungry for.
Right.
So the more you eat, the more you want. So you go out and get more, and you keep eating more, And all you got to do is look at our culture, and you'll see that. I mean, we are a culture of accumulators, right? We just want to, we buy and we bring and we pull in. We always have to have that next big thing and that next thing because we're trying to create an identity by what we have versus who we are, right?
Well, social media doesn't help. I mean, we flip through thousands of images a day that makes us feel very insecure in who we are and makes us feel like we never have enough. What we have in our life isn't enough. And it's very good at if we're not careful, if we're not guarded, if we don't put up those guardrails for ourselves, making us feel like whatever everyone else has, we want or we need that, or, oh, maybe I would be better at this in my life or whatever. And that's why I said whenever we see someone that is struggling
Right.
in their identity, and you know what they've been called to do, you know their gifts, you know their talents, that's why it's incredibly important that you encourage that person, that you tell them how amazing they are, how they've been a blessing in your life. And not only tell them they've been an encouragement in your life, but tell them how they've been that encouragement in your life.
Yep. Specificity.
Yes.
Right. So this actually, let's move on to the next thing, which is really something I really like the conversation. I love to have. We've had this conversation many times. It's about why is that verbalization important? Why do verbal affirmations matter? Right. Because the reality is that, or the truth is that words shape reality. Right. They define identity. They guide behavior. They influence how people see themselves, which is everything you just said. And in a culture that we live in right now, which is really focused on criticism and comparison, right? Yeah, that was great. In fact, I remember I preached a great message one time. I walked off the stage or from the podium, and I just felt just like, yes, nailed it. And walked down, and I'm greeting different people. This little old man named George walks up and he shakes my hand. And he said, brother, that was an incredible message. It was a powerful message if Brother so-and-so had preached it. Right? And
it was, he was completely off.
No, I thought he was off.
No one, how in the world can you say it would have been an amazing message if someone else preached it?
But we do that. We do that all the time, right?
Why do we do that? That's horrible. Yeah. That's just horrible.
I agree. But I remember at that time, I really struggled with my identity as a minister, as a speaker after that for a short period of time, right? Until, we had a lot of conversations about it. God and I had some good conversations, and it was like, well, one person's opinion, one person's comparison shouldn't have that much impact, but it does.
But we
allow it to, if we don't have that solid foundation from ourselves. So, in this culture of criticism and comparison, a verbal affirmation is countercultural, right? And it's transformational because it speaks to the strength and not to the weakness. I talked about it last week, and we talk about it all the time. I can speak to the good or I can speak to the bad. I can feed one or the other. I can feed the good wolf and the bad wolf. And whichever one I feed is the one that's going to grow stronger, the one that's going to grow. So when I'm with people, let's say between us, right? If we've been married for 38 years now. Mm-hmm. There are things about me you don't like, things I do. There's things about you that I think I would sometimes wish would be a little different.
Goodness. Wow. Okay. That you don't like.
That we can speak to those things.
That you don't like.
That I don't like.
Okay.
We can speak to those things, and they can get bigger. Or we can focus on the things that I love, right?
Right.
You can focus on things you love, and we speak to those, and those grow bigger, right? Because that becomes our identity, because that's what we're speaking life into. And
those other things begin to change.
They do.
They start to dissolve.
They do. And our employees are that way, right? Are the people that we work with and work around. We can speak to the things we don't like about them, and they're just going to get bigger and grow more powerful. Or we can speak to those good things that we like. I was working in a warehouse, running a warehouse, man, it was 30 years ago, it feels like. And there was an older man that worked in there, and he and his wife, they were constantly fighting. I mean, it was fist fight city when they would come in.
Oh, wow.
And he would come in and he would be bruised and scratched and all that. He's like, well, I had a conversation. My wife and I had a conversation last night. I'm like, that's not a conversation, right? I'm from a dysfunctional family. I can tell you that is not a conversation. And anyway, so we'd talk, and all he would do is talk about the things he did not like about her and the things that he hated about her. And one day I'm like, then why are you still together? He said, well, because I love her. And that's okay. Well, then if you speak to those things you hate, and that's all you talk about and all you focus on, that's all that's going to grow. Start finding the good things. Even if she does the things you don't like, speak to the good things within her. I said, and that's going to grow. And it took about a year, maybe a year and a half. And one day he came in and he was glowing. He and his wife had gone, they'd been speaking the positive things to one another, and it began to change their lives. They ended up going to church. They got saved. They ended up
their youth group,
working with the youth group, right, and working with the troubled kids in the youth group,
yes,
and speaking to them about speaking life into themselves.
Beautiful.
And it was just a confirmation of the power that words have in shaping reality, right? So
Transformation.
So it is countercultural and it is transformational. I've seen it. We've all seen it, good and bad. We have seen it. So affirmation will sound something like this: Tammy, I see the good in you, and I'm not afraid to say it out loud, right? I'm not afraid to step up and say, I see you. I see the good in you. I see the love that you have. I see the way you encourage people. I see the way you support. I see the way you sacrifice yourself for the people around you are taken care of, sometimes to the detriment of your own health, right? I see that, and I appreciate that in you. But I also see the depth of love and the wisdom that is there that you speak out, right? That, when we say something like that, even something much simpler, from sincerity, from an authentic spot, it impacts that person. And I don't care who they are, it will impact that person. All right. Now there are various categories of affirmations, right? And we're going to talk through 5 of those areas. And it is important to understand the difference, because you're going to talk a different level of intimacy and a different level of truth in each one of them, right? So, one, you're going to affirm somebody's effort. You're going to affirm the process and not just the outcome, because this is great for growth-minded environments. And this is where we miss it with our kids, right? We celebrate with our kids, and we celebrate with our young professionals and with people just coming into the workplace when they do something good, right? And suddenly their identity is based off of what they've done instead of the effort they put into it, right? So when we affirm the effort, then it gives them the ability or the desire to put the effort into it, right? Even when it's hard. One of our sons, our oldest son, he was really good at everything, right? And things just came to him naturally. He still do. Things just come to him naturally. So he never really had to learn the effort part of it. And at the time, we didn't recognize and understand that we needed to speak into the effort part. And we need to put him into things that challenge him a little differently, so that whenever he got to college, he didn't know how to learn because he just automatically knew growing up. And it was a challenge for him. And had we known, we'd had the opportunity to build that skill set and those longer legs in him when he was younger, and he wouldn't have to struggle so hard to learn when he was older. All right. So that would sound something like, hey, I noticed how you kept showing up even when it wasn't easy. Brother, consistency matters. Or you gave, I saw you gave 100%, and even though the result wasn't perfect, that's something to be proud of. And you know what? And you tell these young people all the time as they're learning new skill sets, you're focused on perfection, but you're actually learning faster than you think you are. So just keep pressing in. Don't give up because you're not hitting that perfect spot yet. Keep working, keep going, keep doing, keep driving. And these are perfect when you're coaching someone through a challenge, when somebody's had a tough week, or when you're trying to encourage someone's resilience. And this is not the same thing as everybody gets a trophy, right? That's not what we're talking about here. But this is saying, I see the work you're putting in. Keep up the work. Keep driving. Keep pushing. This is the 2-a-days In football, when you're pushing the tackling dummy, right? It's digging in, keeping driving, keep going. The goal there is not to tackle the dummy. The goal there is to drive and to build the legs. Sure. Wait, Tammy.
I don't know. I just keep coming back to whenever our youngest son and our youngest son and our middle grandson both were struggling in math.
Right.
And they would just tell me it's stupid, but I could see great things in both of them. Our oldest son was loved music,
Right.
absolutely loved creating things. And so with his tutor, I just kept telling him, son, math uses the same side of the brain. And I know once you figure out math, it is going to be brilliant. It's going to come alive in you. And math, he ended up falling in love with math in the same way with our grandson, just constantly reaffirming to them that they can do great things. All they have to do is open their mind to not limit their imagination, but to give themselves the space to
Right.
pour themselves into it. And when they did, now, that's our our middle grandson, that is his absolute favorite class in school is math. He cannot get enough math.
And the young son became an accountant.
And the youngest son became an accountant. Yes. And see, a lot of times, just that reaffirmation where you can see that there's like this glimpse of hope in their eyes and they're this intrigue, but they're not quite sure. So you just keep reaffirming in their lives, pouring into their lives and reassuring them that they can do great things.
And it opens the door to the possibility. And once they can see the possibility, then...
And if they're not good at it, that's fine, but don't limit yourself. Right. Don't limit yourself, and don't feel less than because everyone may be excelling at something quicker than you are. You are not anyone else. And we just have to realize that we are our own person. We have our own gifts, our own abilities. We learn at our own rate, at our own speed, but that doesn't make us any less than another person in the group.
That's true. No, 100%. And so that type of affirmation is perfect for that, because you're never going to be as good as everybody around you. Sometimes they're not going to be as good as you are.
Right.
We have our own pace. We have our own rhythm. Sometimes we lose sight of that. So another type of affirmation, though, is a character-based affirmation, right? That's when we speak to who they are, not just what they do, right? It's for building long-term confidence and self-awareness. Something like, you know what? Your integrity in that situation spoke volumes about who you are, right? And I had actually got this from someone the other day. It says, you lead with compassion and people feel that. So they may not always understand what you say, but they understand where you're coming from. And I like this one. This is really kind of what I've aspired for is, someone says like, you're the kind of person that other people want to follow, right? Because they trust your heart.
I love that. That's beautiful.
And you use these when you're correcting someone. You want to correct them with grace, right? When you want to celebrate the unseen virtues, or you just want to reinforce identity over image, right? We've had, how many conversations we had over the years with people that they're doing something totally out of character with who they are, and having to sit down with them and say, hey, you know what? I'm seeing you do that, but that's really not who you are, right? You're not, especially raising two boys, you're not a bully. You're not the one who, picks on your brother. You've always been the protector of your brother. You've been the one that's been there to encourage him and pick him up when he's fallen. So I don't understand who this is I'm seeing right now.
Right.
And when we see that in our workplace all the time, when someone gets around other people and suddenly they begin acting like them instead of acting like themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
And it's far more valuable. This type of affirmation is more valuable than a lot of us realize. But we also use it far more often than a lot of us realize. if you stop and look at your conversations, especially when you're dealing with a subordinate or dealing with a child, or sometimes with just somebody in a relationship that you're with, dissect those conversations, because I'm one of those guys that I will sit and chew over a conversation I ever have, right? Even after I'm done, I will sit there and I'll chew on it 2 or 3 different times, because I want to see how could I approach that differently, what could I say different, right? That outcome wasn't what I thought the outcome would be, or the outcome was, but I didn't approach it the way I thought I would, so why did it end up there, right? And just kind of a weirdo that way, but I love understanding what motivates people to do what they do, right? Now, a third type of affirmation really is growth-oriented affirmations. This is where we get to help people see their progress even when they don't, right? And then I've heard you use this one a lot when the kids, especially when the kids were younger and they were growing, you kind of talked about it a minute ago, right? And they sound something like, hey, you have grown so much in the way you communicate. Have you noticed that, right? And ask them to reaffirm it back. Things like, you know what? Your patience is miles ahead of where you were just a few months ago. And I've seen maturity in your decisions lately. You're stepping into your next season, right? And this is great for when you're mentoring someone who's right on the edge of breakthrough, right? And they need that little bit of a push to remind them how far they've come. And
to not stop.
Right?
Yes.
Because what do we know about the dawn, right? We know there's always darkness right before the dawn.
Yes.
We know that your miracle is a day away. Your breakthrough is just one extra push away,
right around the corner.
And so this is the type of affirmation that we would deploy, right, as one of the out of our toolkit, and help these people to understand that you have come so far. And this is honestly, as just speaking to leaders, this is where a lot of us miss it, right? Because we assume, because we had that conversation and we've got them started down this path, that they're just going to continue down the path, so we never bring it up again, right? That's similar to, I don't have to tell you I love you because I go to work every day, right? Somebody who says, well, I'm ready for that next position because I'm here every day. Well, there's some things that are givens, but when we assume that someone knows we're good with their progress just because we're not right at them, then we've missed it. They need to hear that encouragement, because everybody wants approval. I don't care who you are. You want approval. You want the people that you report to or around you to respect you, to like you, to accept you, to have pride in what you're doing. We want the people around us to have confidence that we're going to fulfill our obligations.
Yeah.
So these type of affirmations are perfect for that, and they're vital to that continued growth and success. And if you're not mentoring someone, you need to be mentoring someone. It can be a formal mentorship. It can just be an informal something, but you need to be pouring the lessons you've learned into someone, and you will learn from them in the process.
That's right.
Now, the fourth type of affirmation is situational affirmations. That's where you're going to acknowledge a specific moment or behavior that's going to affirm the clarity and build trust in that area. And, you come out of a meeting, the meeting was tough, and you can turn to that person and you can say, you know what, that meeting was tough, but you handled it with grace. The way you stayed calm under pressure gave the whole room stability, right? Or, you know what, thanks for stepping in, because that really changed the outcome. These are time sensitive. They have to be done right after the event. They have to be done right after the decision, or right after the conflict. This is your in the moment toolkit that you're going to pull out, right? It can't be during. It has to be after, because you're going to affirm what they just did. The during are the one we just talked about, right? Like, you've come so far. Just keep going. Just keep pushing through, right?
Yeah.
But this one is after the fact. But it is important because it reinforces the behavior that they just did, right? And again, we want that reinforcement. We want that acceptance. We want that acknowledgement that we are growing and we are contributing in some form or fashion different than what we contributed before. Now, my favorite is the future-focused affirmations, right? This is number 5. This is, Tammy was talking about this a minute ago. This is where you're casting a vision into someone's future about that's going to reinforce their calling and give them courage to step up and do it, right? These are those, you know what? There's more in you than you know, and I see it coming out. I see you stepping up and doing this. As a leader, when we see someone young in our organization, and we want to encourage them to step into that next challenging role, right? Or to start preparing themselves for that role. This is the type of affirmation we would use, right? You know what? You're made for this. Your next chapter is already unfolding. I see you stepping into that. I see you stepping up. I see you up in front of that crowd speaking. I see you writing that book. I see you go,
or God's not done with your story, and neither are you.
There we go. Yeah, absolutely. But I think that is really what it's about. It's speaking into their future, right?
It is our job. We are creating warriors for the future, and we have to just, sometimes we're tired. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of where we're eventually going through this. Sometimes we're tired, but it is just extremely so life-giving whenever we give of ourselves in our, sometimes our despair. When we don't feel like giving that encouragement and things, we do not realize that when we're, like Michael said earlier, when we're giving encouragement to someone else, when we make that point to pour into someone else through our exhaustive state, through our emptiness, oftentimes God, and not oftentimes, more often than not, God revamps us inside. There's something that when we speak it out to someone else, it gives us this encouragement within that just helps bring us to life. And I don't know about everyone out there, but I feel good when I encourage someone else.
Oh yeah.
When I point to someone else and tell them that they are beautiful, they are great, and they're doing great and mighty things with their life. And I can't go into detail because I don't have a situation, but it's just so important that we come at the end of ourselves. And because a lot of times what can happen is we can be so involved with work that people that God has strategically placed all around us that we are supposed to be leading, sometimes when they're at their greatest moments in lives, we're so wrapped up in ourselves that we forget to see their greatest moments. And so it's extremely important that you pour out of yourself, even at times whenever you don't want to pour,
right.
Because it's through those times that a lot of other people can see that you are at the end of yourself.
Right.
But they see whenever you are encouraging them, they're like, man, that person is going through so much, yet they took time to encourage me. And that puts a little extra step in, in their walk. I mean, it gives them a little extra, and they're like, man. And then they see what you are, oh goodness. They see what you're talking about in their life, but they're just not quite so sure.
Right.
But whenever you come in and you're reaffirming to them what they felt in their heart they knew, but they just wasn't sure because they needed that little extra added encouragement, man.
Right.
It just puts a feather in your cap at the end of the day.
I agree. Because this type of affirmation we're talking about, that's what you use to encourage someone when they're in transition, right? When they're struggling, when they're questioning their purpose in life, right? And if we sometimes struggle seeing it in them, and they struggle seeing it in us, then I can promise you that we're struggling seeing it in ourselves, and they're struggling seeing it in themselves. And not all mirrors are equal. Right, in our between our bedroom and our bathroom, we have 5 mirrors, right? 4 mirrors. 5 mirrors. Each mirror shows me different, right?
It is true.
I've got one mirror that I close my eyes when I walk by because it shrinks me 6 inches and makes me wider. But I've got the one that I really love that actually makes me about 6 inches taller and narrows me out. So I go to that one a lot. But we're that same way. The circumstances and emotions we're dealing with, and just life in general, the people, the butt heads we've had to deal with in our life, can sometimes change the temper of that mirror that we're looking through, and we see ourselves through a distorted lens. And it's interesting how someone else can step back and see us different, see us our reality. So a lot of times, we're in that moment and we have that George Costanza brain fog, right? We don't know what to say. We know we need to say something, but we don't know what to say. And, so there's a really quick sentence starters I want to share that are great to have in your back pocket, right? But you have to be sincere when you say them, right? It's not just like, hey, I'm going to pull number 7 today. It's got to be very specific. All right. So, and these happen if you just need something on the fly, right? And you're tongue tied and you're having a hard time coming out with something. It's like, hey, what you just did there, that showed real leadership. It's real time. It's very specific. They know what they just did, right? Or, hey, I don't think you realize how impactful that was. And Tammy's used this one on me a lot, especially after I was speaking or something, right?
People are watching you and you're showing them what integrity looks like.
Yeah, that's huge because we are all on stage and people are watching. That is for sure. Now, and Tammy's thrown this one at me a few times, a couple of different iterations of this one, right? Hey, I know the season is hard, but I can see the strength rising in you. I can see you stepping up. I know you want to quit, but now is not the time to quit.
That's right.
Right? Because that's not who you're made to be.
No, it is something. And I do see great things in you constantly. I think I'm so grateful that you and I are there to be that encouragement to each other, to be each other's cheerleader along the way. How about that's exactly the kind of influence we need more of?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Because a lot of times we want to acknowledge the action. We want to acknowledge, okay, oh man, you rebuilt that car. You did a great job.
Yes.
But the power of the influence that someone exerts, good or bad, is far more reaching than any physical thing that we can do. And I think we lose sight of that. Now I love this one, right? It's keep doing what you're doing. It's working. Even if you don't see it yet, it is working. And I remember I was in a conversation with Larry Kerr. I talked about him last week, one day, and I had this concept of feed forward. Right? It's easy to come in and say, hey, how am I doing? And that somebody gives you feedback on how you're doing. But feed forward is where you go to someone that is 1 or 2, 3 levels from where you are fully, and you sit down and you say, hey, I just need your input. You know where I'm at, you know what I'm doing, you know my skill sets. I don't really need to know what you think how I'm doing right now. What I need to know is what do I need to do to span that gap between my position and your position? What do I need to be working on? What do I need to be getting ready for? That kind of thing. It's kind of like you're forcing somebody to be a mentor. You're going to let it sign up for it, right? And I remember at that time, Larry gave me a version of this in his response. He said, just keep doing what you're doing because it's working. You don't see it right now, but it's working. Just keep doing it. It's just time. It's just experience at this point. And I thought that was, I thought that was huge even at the time, but later when I really understood the impact of how he said it, it was just even more so. Jerry Spire, I've talked about him. He's brought that out a few times. A guy named Edward Bahi, he brought it out a couple different times, right? So I've seen some real leaders, very effective leaders bringing out versions of some of this at different times. But we're going to quickly walk through some tips, right? When you're using any kind of affirmation, right? The first one, be specific. Vagueness feels shallow, right? If you just walk up to your spouse or your partner and you say, hey, I love you, and walk off. Well, they're going to get that you love them, but what they really want to hear is, I love this about you, right? I love, and something very specific, not just a body part, right? That's easy to say, but I love the way you care for us. I love your heart, right? I love the way that you're willing to give of yourself, or you're willing to be there to encourage. And even when you're in the middle of the battle, you're always willing to step in, right? That kind of thing.
I love how you provide for us.
Yeah. Stuff like that, right? And the more details you can get without dragging it down actually builds trust that you're sincere in what you're saying, right? So I just says, hey, thanks for what, right? Or I'm sorry for what? And it's not that you're digging in, but you want to know what that is about, right? And whether you come out and say, well, what are you thankful for? What are you sorry for? Whether you say it or not, you're still thinking it, right? So if it's, hey, I'm sorry I was a jerk to you yesterday, that's more impactful than just, hey, I owe you an apology, and then walk it off, right?
And that's just weird.
It is.
This is, I owe you an apology.
Yeah.
Where?
Yeah, you still didn't apologize.
First of all,
yeah.
Your apology may not be what I'm hoping you will apologize for.
That's true. We agree. I owe you one. I still owe you. I agree.
Yeah.
That's fine. All right. How about being timely? How important is it to speak it out while it's still fresh and not saving it for that perfect time, right?
It's incredibly important.
I remember when Tammy and when I asked her to marry me, I had this in my brain worked out the perfect way I was going to ask her, but it didn't quite work out that way. It was about a week earlier than that. And it was it felt spur of the moment-ish, but it really wasn't, right? But it wasn't the perfect time I had mapped out in my head, but it was the perfect time for where we were at the moment, if that makes sense, right?
I'm not quite sure what we're referring to, but okay. You actually asked me to marry you twice.
I know, the second time was more.
The second time was heaven.
Yeah, the first time was, this is spur of the moment.
Yeah.
But you still said yes, which showed how much you love me.
Yes.
All right. Now, be sincere.
That's right.
Right?
So important.
I think
speak from the heart.
Yeah. And avoid that exaggerated praise.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you are the best this in the world. Well, no, you're absolutely not the best this in the world. Right? Mm-hmm. Now maybe in their world you're the best this, but if it feels exaggerated, or if it feels like it's just blown way up, then people are going to start discounting it.
Right.
Because people know when it's fake, and they know when it's real, right?
That's right.
Now, we always hear about you praise in public and you discipline in private, right? Or correct in private. But the reality is, there's times that you want to affirm in public, and there's times you want to affirm privately, because that private affirmation, that builds intimacy. Public affirmation builds credibility, right? When the CEO praises me in public, then that makes me feel good because everybody around me suddenly sees me differently, right? But when the CEO comes to me privately to say, I saw what you did and I really do appreciate that, right? That has a totally different impact.
It does.
Right?
It definitely does.
And then one of the most important aspects of affirmation is make it part of your rhythm, right? Don't wait for performance reviews. Don't wait for milestone moments. Make it part of who you are. When you're walking through the shop floor, when you're passing somebody on the street, right? And you see that thing, that whatever it is that you want to affirm, that you want to encourage, do it right then, right?
Yeah. Or, just say, I thank you for being on our team, man. Our team is better because of you. It doesn't even necessarily have to be directed at just specifically them. Just reminding them that they're part of a team is just as valuable, and and you're being sincere. Hopefully you're being sincere, when you're saying that. But a lot of times we just need to be reminded that we are not only just we're not only ourselves, but we're part of something bigger, something more. And, to me, I mean, we have always been about teamwork.
Oh, absolutely.
And not being the big I, but being, universal, everybody coming together and creating something grander.
Yeah.
Because a whole lot of people can create something much more grand than one person ever could think about.
No, that's true. My brother, he tells me a story when he was in, I think it was Korea. He got put in for multiple commendation medals, and from different ones. He worked on tank range, and his commander was like, "Well, we're just going to save them all, and we're going to put you in for a big one, a bigger medal at the end, right? And then so before you go, we'll give you this bigger medal." Things happen, things change, and he never got the larger commendation, but he also never got the commendation medals, even though he had general after general who put him in for him. So I think that it's that way in our lives as well, right? We want to, well, I'm going to wait and I'm just going to acknowledge them at the end of it all, right? When the reality is we need to encourage them as we go.
Yes.
And I remember growing up, I was always told you don't thank a man before the job is done, right? Because the moment you thank them, they'll quit. And that is absolutely not true, right? You don't pay them before the job's done,
right?
But you thank them, you encourage them, and you continue on. And I think that we all think that the compliments and affirmations and encouragement are limited in the number that we have, right? So we get very stingy with them. We don't want to give them out. But the truth is, they don't cost you anything. Right? Yeah. It cost me nothing but a couple seconds of my time and maybe a little bit of my pride to encourage someone, right? To step out of my comfort zone and call out something in them. But you know what? While it didn't cost me anything, it can change their life. It can change their day. It can change their direction. When I was mayor, I would write the character kids each month. I would sit down and write a personal letter to each one of the character kids. And then I would send it to the school. The school would hand it out to them during their whatever the ceremonies that they would have where they would recognize them
for the ceremonies.
And it was just something I did. I've done thousands of them at the time, right?
You did.
And I remember I went to work at a company, and I was, we're sitting around, we were talking and different ones in a meeting, and we were talking about ways you encourage people, the ways you do. And so I brought up that example of encourage them. While I never knew them, it was just something that said, hey. And there was a lady in the meeting that she said, I thought that was you. My daughter still has that framed hanging on her wall. I mean, and this was 7-8 years later.
Yeah, well, we've had 3 or 4 different moms. We've had some kids that are full-grown adults now that have come to you and said that they still have their character awards and things that you gave them.
But I only bring that up to say this. It was insignificant for me to do that, right? It cost me just a little bit of time. But the impact it had on them was huge, right? I heard a man one time that said that if you, and I'm not comparing myself to John F. Kennedy in any way, but said, that if you walked up to and you met John F. Kennedy and walked away, or any famous person or president, right? They're not going to remember you the moment you walk away, but you're going to remember that moment for the rest of your life, right? Because it's a matter of perspective. I ran into Adam Sandler in Canada and got a picture of him while he was filming Pixels, right? I remember that vividly as though it just happened yesterday, but he would not remember me the moment I walked away from it, right? Because it is about perspective. So affirmation does not cost you anything, but it can change someone's life and it can change the direction. And the truth is, you might be the only person who sees the gold in them right now, right? All they see is the dross. All anybody around them sees is the dross. You might be the only person that sees the gold. So when you see the gold, baby, what do?
What do I see? Gravitate towards it. Sorry. No, I mean, encourage it, polish it, right? You polish the gold, and I guess that's where we're going with this.
Yeah. You speak it out. Right.
Yeah, well,
You call it out.
I found the gold.
Yeah. And you remind them of who they are
Well, right.
until they remember it too.
I'm sorry. Being silly.
You are funny. So, but you know what? That we blew through that hour fast. Can you believe it's been an hour that we've been talking about this?
Are we still talking?
No, I
Did
think
you pause it?
no, we're still talking.
Oh, okay.
But I am gonna go ahead and close this out, and then we're gonna have to come back next week and do part 3 of encouragement, and hopefully we can make it through a little further. But I say that, but at the same time, this I thought was a great conversation, and I appreciate you being here, Tammy. And hopefully you'll be able to come back next.
Before we end, can we go ahead and talk about what happens when you do? Can we just talk about it? Because I know you'll be editing and things, so some things will be cut out.
We can.
But there's this one part here that you came up to that I ended up coming up to at the wrong time.
Okay.
I didn't even know it was really there. But it's when you need encouragement yourself.
Yep. Let's talk about that. Okay. So
I mean, I accidentally hopped
you're
on
fine.
that early on in the
that's where
conversation.
we're going to start next week. But
Oh. Well, how about we just go ahead and end here?
okay. All right. So we're going to end here, and then next week we're going to start with what happens when you need encouragement yourself, right? And because that's huge, right? What happens when you're the one who's running on empty?
It has been a wonderful time spending
Yeah, sure.
time with you guys today. I'm sorry that I veered off a little bit off track. I didn't really get to look through the program, but it has been a pleasure being able to spend time with you guys and with my amazing husband, who's also been a fantastic mentor in my life. So, wonderful leader, wonderful husband, amazing father, and thank you guys for having me today.
No, I appreciate you being here. So thank you for joining us here on Lead Bold, Live Whole. And remember, leadership or encouragement, it's not optional in leadership. It is leadership. It's what turns employees into believers. It turns strangers into allies. It turns parents, burnout pastors, and discouraged creators into people who stand back up and keep going. So remember, it's encouragement. It's not flattery. It's not hype. It's that real soul level reminder that you're not alone in this world. And more importantly, that you're not done yet. So today, don't wait. Be the reason someone doesn't give up.
Thanks for joining us on Lead Well, Live Whole. If this added value to your journey, share it with a friend and subscribe. Until next time, lead those you serve well and live your life whole.